Hi, my name's Simon Callaghan from Callaghan Productions, and I'm here to talk about standing out, why PR is essential as a 21st century game developer. So just a little bit background on myself for those that don't know me. I've been doing PR in the video games industry since the late 90s. Started off at EA, then moved on to Infogrames, Atari. In between then, helped launch the Sega Dreamcast in the UK for the PR agency that was handling the Sega account at the time. And then in 2005, started Johnny Adam Productions, working more at the indie end of the spectrum, 1, 2, 3, 4-man teams, all the way up to independent publishers such as Raw, Fury, and Paradox Interactive. So that's a little bit about myself. So what is PR? It's not marketing. A lot of people make that mistake confusing PR and marketing, thinking they're the same things, when in reality they're not. They're very, very different. They do work in tandem with one another, and they are two sides of the same coin, but the core disciplines in terms of what encompasses PR and what encompasses marketing are very, very different. So we're just going to have a quick look at the core disciplines that encompass marketing and PR. So this is just a quick overview. So starting with marketing, all advertising income is marketing. So print, online, digital, static, outdoor, all advertising, that's marketing. Advertorial, so advertorials, they look like editorial pieces. You'll see them in newspapers, magazines, on television sometimes, on some of the smaller cable and digital channels, but you can always tell they're advertorials because in the top right hand corner it usually say paid for advertisement feature or paid for sponsorship feature, words to that effect. Paid for influencer content, so a publisher or a developer will approach a YouTuber or streamer, and in return for a set agreed amount of money, that influencer will play that game, but they will play the game in a way that the publisher or developer wants them to play it. So they'll show the aspects of the game that they want them to show, highlight the areas they want them to highlight, basically talk about everything that the developer or publisher want them to talk about, and that content would then go out at the date and time of the publisher or developer's choosing. Website homepage takeover, that is pretty self-explanatory. So if you went on the homepage of PC Gamer or Eurogamer or GameSpot or any of the big gaming websites, as soon as you go on the homepage, you'll see at the top of the page and down the sides the homepage takeover, whereby a publisher will be promoting, advertising a new game that's either just released or about to release. And if you clicked on that ad or clicked on that banner, it would take you then to that game's website, homepage. And sponsorship, predominantly television sponsorship, whereby a publisher will sponsor a TV program or channel whose demographic fits in with their demographic or the demographic of the game that they're promoting. So the most obvious example would be EA and FIFA sponsoring Premier League football on Sky Sports. Moving on to PR, so all editorial-driven content would come under the remit of PR. So that'd be news, previews, reviews, interviews, features, that's all PR. Non-paid-for influencer content, whereby a developer or publisher will approach a YouTuber or streamer in the hope of getting them to play their game because their audience, their demographic fits in with the game's demographic or the publisher or developer's demographic. And usually that influencer will then play that game because they want to play it or because they know that their audience would want them to play it, but that they would then be able to say what they want about the game, show the areas of the game that they want to show. Essentially there would be less control from the publisher and developer side, and that content would go out at the date and time of the influencer's choosing. And community management, whereby a publisher or developer will be able to have a direct relationship with their fans, with their audience, and the fans and the audience will also be able to have that direct communication with the developer or publisher. So that be done via all the social media channels such as Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, and sometimes via a game or publisher's own websites, and that would be controlled by usually a dedicated community manager But again, that would fall under the remit of PR. So, why do you need PR? Well, a strong PR campaign can engage a consumer to actively purchase your product. A strong marketing campaign can reinforce that messaging in a consumer's mind. But a PR campaign by itself has a much greater power to drive a consumer to purchase than a marketing campaign by itself, because it's editorially driven and opinion-led. So what do I mean by that? Well, your favourite journalist or influencer telling you a game is great carries a lot more weight than a paid-for ad saying the same thing. So how does PR relate to you as a game developer? Well, you are competing for people's time. In today's digital world, consumers are spoiled for choice when it comes to entertainment, with only a limited amount of disposable time available. Games are not just competing against each other for consumers' share of time anymore, but also with music, movies, television, via a plethora of digital streaming services and platforms. And they're being added all the time, and there's more and more of them all the time. The most recent example, certainly in the UK, would be Disney Plus, which launched last month. So that's another channel, another digital channel, entertainment channel that is competing for that consumer's share of time. So, as a developer, the days of hoping or trusting that your game will simply be found by consumers are long, long gone. You'll just simply be lost in the sea of other entertainment products. So many developers still fall into this trap by not thinking about promoting their game, or if they do, thinking about it too late. Discoverability is the #1 issue facing the majority of game developers today. According to stats released by Valve in 2019, Steam has 30,000 games listed, approximately 53% of which have been released since 2017. So you immediately see the problem. In the last 3 years alone, you're looking at about 17,000 games that have just been released, and that's just on Steam, without looking at the other platforms, digital gaming channels, Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, etc. So it's a major, major problem. So then the two questions that you then need to ask yourself is, when it comes to deciding to promote your game, when do you start promoting and how do you promote? So when should you start working on your PR plan? A strong PR campaign, it takes time, from conception through to execution and everything in between. So factor PR into your development schedule from day one. Even though a PR campaign is not as cash reliant as a marketing campaign, you will still need a budget for things such as visual asset production, travel, accommodation, and booth space for attending any consumer and trade events. So allocate a dedicated budget away from the development budget from the outset. Your PR activity calendar should run concurrently to your development schedule from the very beginning. So here's an example of how it might look. So we've split the screen into top half and bottom half. On the top side, you've got your basic development calendar, how that might look, and on the bottom, your basic PR calendar, how that might look. And for running from left to right, so we start on the development side, you'd have your planning, your budgeting in place, your design doc would be done. On the PR side at the same time, that's when you would start putting your plan together, your PR plan together, what kind of activities you're going to do, how your budget's going to look, how that calendar, that timeline's going to look. Moving on to when your game hits alpha, maybe that's when you'll announce your game, so perhaps an announcement press release, core messaging on what the game is about, maybe a little teaser trailer, just to kind of get the feel for the game. When you move on to beta, when the game hits beta, maybe that's when you'll be looking at some more news. Essentially, you might have your release date ready to go, so you can announce your release date. Maybe the game is robust enough now where you're confident in showing in-game footage, so you could release an in-game trailer. And maybe at the same time, you could be doing like your first look previews with maybe one or two trusted media outlets or one or two trusted influencers who will be able to kind of get the feel for the game out to the wider gaming world. Then when the game launches, maybe that's when you'll be looking at your reviews. So essentially that is the culmination of the campaign. All the reviews come out there. Maybe you have another in-game trailer that you can release at the same time as your out-and-out press release, so really push home that messaging. Also, maybe if the timing's right and the budget's there, look at some consumer shows, because those are the guys that are going to be ultimately paying the bills, the guys that are going to go out and buy the game. So if you can maybe show the game, shows like the Eurogamer Expo, for example, once we're over this global pandemic, obviously, and again, just getting the game into the hands of the consumers. So that might, just a general look of how your PR calendar would run concurrently to your development calendar. So, how should I promote my game? There are a number of very good specialist PR consultancies of agencies of varying sizes, myself included, that can put together tailored PR campaigns specifically for you, but obviously they cost money. If you're a new developer or a small developer with very, very limited resources, you're probably not going to be in a position to look to an external PR consultancy or agency to handle your PR campaign for you. However, there are plenty of things that you can do yourself, which we're going to look at now. So the first thing to understand is that committing to a promotional campaign, it takes up time, hence factoring it into your development schedule from day one and not as a last minute afterthought. The more time and effort you or an agency on your behalf put in, the greater chance of success that you have. The best and strongest tool you have in executing a successful PR campaign and getting your game noticed is by making a great game. Now that sounds kind of stupid and redundant. No one sets out to make a bad game, but ultimately the success of your PR campaign is going to live or die by how good your game is fundamentally the backbone, the rock of how successful your PR campaign is going to be. So, bearing that in mind, don't try and make a game that is all things to all people in order to appeal to as big an audience as possible, because you're almost certainly going to fail. That's what AAA publishers do with AAA budgets, and they rarely succeed to do it. The only company I can think of off the top of my head whose hit rate is pretty extraordinary is Rockstar Games, but they're the only one. So don't even try and think about going down that road. So make a specific game for a specific audience and make it the absolute best in class. So, whatever your passion is, whether it's an isometric RPG or a pixel art adventure game or a side-scrolling beat-em-up or platform, it doesn't matter. Wherever your talents lie, wherever your passions lie, focus on that and absolutely make it the best that you possibly can. Having a great game is the rock solid foundation from which you can build a PR campaign, a great PR campaign, as I've just said. The second strongest tool you have in a PR campaign is you. Gaming media and gamers themselves love to hear from talented devs about what they're working on, so put yourself out there as much as possible. Promote the heck out of your studio and of your game. So PR activities. So these are the key activities for building awareness for your game over a period of time, ideally peaking at time of release. So build a loyal community. There's no shortcut for this, but the rewards are potentially huge. Get fans, potential consumers involved in the development process of your game via social media outlets and forums. Give them a vested interest, make them feel included. It doesn't have to be all the time about the game, what's going on with the game. It can be what's going on in the studio. It could be like, this is it's game night on Thursdays or pizza Fridays or whatever it is. The core, the key element is doing it regularly and also getting fans and consumers to know you as individuals, as a studio, so they can put a personality to whatever game that you're working on. Identify who the key gaming media outlets and journalists for the type of game you're developing are and reach out to them. You want to create evangelists for your game. Again, this takes time, especially if this is your first game and they've never heard of you. But don't be discouraged if they take a bit of time to get back to you, or it takes 2 or 3 attempts. They're just as busy as you are. But it's a long game. Persevere, always be polite, always be concise, and just be in it for the long haul. Trade shows. The best way to get your game in front of multiple media outlets and journalists from multiple countries in a condensed period of time is to attend a trade show. Identify and prioritise which shows give you the best chance of success for your game, as you almost certainly won't have the time and budget to attend them all. Same goes for consumer shows. Get your game in front of the people that matter the most, the paying public, as I said previously. But this will take time out of your development schedule, so factor it in early. Assets, assets, assets. I really can't stress this enough. A game is pretty hard to promote over a period of time without visual assets, particularly videos, which outside of the game itself is your most powerful tool. So teaser trailers, in-game trailers, video dev diaries, all take time and money to produce. So again, factor them into your development schedule early. Influencers, again, much like identifying the right media outlets and journalists, research and identify the key streamers and influencers for the type of game you're developing. Create those evangelists. And reviews. When your game is feature complete and robust, it's time for it to leave the nest and enter the world. So strong positive reviews prior to or on day of release are a powerful tool in engaging audiences and incentivizing them to buy your game. Which again, it just goes back to my earlier point. I want to reinforce how important it is to make a great game, because if you spend all this time and money, over many, many months on this fantastic PR campaign and you've nailed it every step of the way, and then the game releases and it gets 3 out of 10 or 4 out of 10, then essentially it's all been a waste. So the focus absolutely early on has to be, let's make the best possible game that we can, and then everything else will follow on from that. So that comes to the end of my presentation. Thank you for your time. I hope you found it useful, and hopefully see some of you again in the very near future when we can all leave our houses. Take care.